It's the Epiphany of the Lord, almost the finale to the Christmas season, which ends tomorrow. Now, in last week's Gospel, we heard about Simeon and Anna, who proclaimed Jesus primarily as the Messiah to the Jews. Anna was awaiting the redemption of Jerusalem, and Simeon also was awaiting the consolation of Israel. But Simeon goes further, and after proclaiming Jesus as the glory of Israel, he adds, "My eyes have seen your salvation, which you prepared in sight of all the peoples, a light for revelation to the Gentiles." Now think about the temple. I think you could probably call it the most Jewish place on earth. So the people at that moment who were there probably wondered why Simeon was even mentioning the Gentiles. Well, this week, in today's second reading, it's made clear, right? St. Paul writes to the Ephesians that the Gentiles are co-heirs, members of the same body, and co-partners in the promise of Christ Jesus through the gospel. So Jesus is not just the Messiah for the Jews, he's the Messiah for all people. And isn't it interesting that today the situation is completely reversed? Among the more than 1 billion Christians in the world, we probably very few of us think of Jesus as the Messiah to the 15 million Jews in the world. But that's a topic for another day. St. Paul says that the news of Jesus being the Messiah for the Gentiles was a mystery that was made known to me by revelation. It was not made known to people in other generations. So all up to the time of Christ, God was working with the people Israel to prepare them for the Messiah. But his ultimate plan was also to include us Gentiles as well. As St. Paul writes, that part of his plan was hidden with only flashes or hints revealed. I mean, one hint was written today's psalm response. Every nation on earth will adore you. And another one was given to the prophet Isaiah in the first reading. He's speaking of Jerusalem in a joyful future and says, "Nations shall walk by your light, and kings by your shining radiance." Or think of the beginning of salvation history when God called Abraham and told him, "In you all nations will find blessing." Well, for that and for the psalmist who wrote today's reading, or for Isaiah, these are, somewhat vague, nothing as explicit as what St. Paul writes, that the Gentiles are co-heirs. So it's only really in hindsight that we can begin to understand these Old Testament prophecies. Now, with that said, there certainly was a specific prophecy that was fulfilled, which was Isaiah writing that gold and frankincense would be brought. And of course, that's exactly what the Magi brought. So with all this history of the plans that God was making, doesn't it make you just stand back and wonder at all that he accomplished and how he knew exactly how it was going to come about, like with the gold and frankincense, or there were many other prophecies that were fulfilled in Jesus. We can expand that and wonder even now, what are God's plans that are unfolding in the present time that are hidden to us? We can take comfort in knowing that he is at work and his plans will not be frustrated. He is our Father who is guiding the world and guiding us if we listen. God fulfills these plans normally in ordinary ways, but sometimes he has to intervene extraordinarily, like he did with the Magi, letting them know to follow this star and speaking to them in a dream. Or how St. Paul writes that he was given a revelation, a direct message from God to include the Gentiles. And this message was also given to the apostles. Think of the events in Acts chapter 10 when the centurion Cornelius was told by an angel to summon Peter to his house. And Peter himself had his own vision of the sheet coming down from heaven with all the animals telling him to slaughter and eat. And through that, he understood that the Gentiles were supposed to be included. God had to intervene in these exceptional ways, because otherwise Paul and Peter and the Jewish people of the day never would have understood the message. And neither would the Magi have understood to come without this exceptional star. And they represent us coming to Jesus. So let's thank God now, and let's look forward to thanking Him eternally that the message did get through. And this Feast of Epiphany is us Gentiles' special day to celebrate it.